Welcome back to the channel. Here I am once again, bringing you guys another late TBR, as that's just apparently what I do these days. I'm about a week late to uploading this because things happen, life gets in the way. Anyway, here's what I'm reading in July. So right off the bat, I'm gonna try to lift this giant ass book up. Oh my god, Wizard and Glass by Stephen King, the chunkiest chunky boy of the Dark Tower so far. I'm already about 150 pages or so into this, as you can see. But if you followed the channel at all recently, I'm absolutely loving the Dark Tower. And while Wastelands was not my favorite, and at that point that was the chunkiest chunky boy of the Dark Tower, Wizard and Glass is already off to a fantastic start, and it's really flying by. Like, I'm doing a little bit of reading and audio combined, as I typically do for all these gigantic books, and I'm loving the narration still. But it's just so interesting. I loved the sort of cliffhanger ending of Wastelands, and then basically picking up right back where we left off in Wizard and Glass. And I still have zero idea where this is actually going. I did finally notice a good little tie-in from a book that I have not read called The Stand, but I understand now why it's so related to this book and this series in general. But overall, just these books have been great. Like I keep saying repeatedly, Stephen King is quickly becoming one of my favorite authors because I haven't disliked anything that I've read of his. Whether it was, Pet Sematary or anything in the Dark Tower, it's all been great. He has such a knack for character interactions and dialogue and making believable personalities, and I don't know, he's very good at writing people, which is fantastic. And I hear he's great about writing, believable kid characters and doing the whole like coming of age, which I haven't read a ton of personally with his works yet, but I will get to it. And I'm looking forward to that as well. But right now I'm loving the Dark Tower. It's super weird. It's crazy. It's out there. There's just so many off the wall ideas that I would have never expected to be in a fantasy book. And I really dig it. It's great. And as much as I love these covers, they do unfortunately have the whole like, now a major motion picture with Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey, because I really think they thought they had a great Dark Tower movie, and pretty sure they didn't. Next up is a carryover from last month that I actually did not get to, but I will read this month, and that's Foundation by Isaac Asimov, which again, I've read a couple of chapters in this so far. But basically, the thing that has me most interested about this is it's sort of supposed to be the basis for a lot of sci-fi and space operas that we read today, whether it was Dune when Frank Herbert wrote that, or even more recent things like Red Rising or, Sun Eater. There's all The Expanse. All these things kind of had a foundation built for them by this man right here. Very highly regarded author, and he creates a galactic empire in this. It's one of the most expansive worlds that was seen in sci-fi at the time, and I'm doing my best to get back to and sort of do a mix of like modern sci-fi and classic sci-fi and get back to like I don't want to say foundation again, the basis for a lot of these things that we see today, just to sort of gain that respect and knowledge of where current day authors really pulled from. Because as much as Dune influenced so much of sci-fi and fantasy today, Foundation likely did the same in a lot of ways as well. And that's what I'm most looking forward to. I'm not expecting, as most classic sci-fi does, there's not usually a lot of like great character work or plot even, but apparently some of Foundation is a little bit different. So I'm interested to see if I take any like good character work out of this book, or I really find like a thrilling plot throughout the novel, whereas most classic sci-fi seems to be like the characters are just kind of facilitating the ideas and the themes, and you have to follow somebody, so they're there. I'm curious to see what Isaac Asimov did in this, and then where the series goes, because I'm pretty sure there's several sequels, and I only really hear about Foundation talked about, so I wonder why that is. Curious to find out. Next up, because I've been itching to get back into this series, because I've only read the first book, but I binged the entirety of The Last Kingdom with my wife, followed by all 6, but really 9 seasons of Vikings. So I was on a Vikings sort of Saxon Tales kind of kick for a while. I read and loved The Last Kingdom, book 1. I believe this is just called the Saxon Tales or Saxon Stories. I see it referred to as many different things, but The Pale Horseman, book 2, following Uhtred and all of his many last names that he picks up throughout. But I love the storytelling of this. It's my first, I guess, historical fiction that I've actually read, and I've been told that his other series are even better. And there's honestly, like, looking through his catalog of books and series that he's written, I'm interested in all of them, so I definitely plan on reading a ton of his stuff. But right now, I love this series. I love how closely tied the TV show and the books seem to be, at least so far. I'm guessing at some point it's going to sort of split off, sort of like Game of Thrones did with the Song of Ice and Fire books, where it was like a super duper close adaptation of like basically putting the book to screen and then just kind of like diverging paths, and they kind of did their own thing. I'm assuming there's a lot of that in the show, but I've also been told that it's pretty well done as like staying close to the book text. But also, as I understand it, the Netflix series only did the first 10 books within all of their seasons of TV, and there were actually 3 more that were written afterwards. So who knows? I'm really interested to see the differences, because I love the show was fantastic. I think it was well cast. I'm not talking about the show, but it was great. And reading the book gave me a lot of the same feelings, and seeing how close, how similar they were was great. And just the dialogue that Bernard Cornwell creates in this, all the historical elements that he pulls, obviously, from to create this story are incredibly fascinating. And a lot of it does seem like it's actually pretty close to what happened in a lot of ways. Obviously, timelines are messed up. Like Uhtred's, participation in a lot of this is obviously, fabricated. But there's a lot of things to take away from this that are just incredibly interesting. And it makes me... My battery died. Damn it. Anyway, love the show. Loving the book so far. Eager to continue. And it makes me more interested in learning about history and what really happened to the Vikings and the Saxons during all this time. How Christianity had this like crazy, essentially like takeover of these lands and these competing ideologies and religions. It's all incredibly fascinating. He just makes it a very thrilling tale to experience. So I'm looking forward to more. And last but not least is Jade City by Fonda Lee, which was my Patreon pick of the month. So super excited about this. Thank you again, Hillary, for sending me these beautiful Illumicrate editions. All the goodies. I unwrapped this on a book haul a while back, but it's a gorgeous book. It is signed, which is awesome. Sorry to hear, Fonda Lee, that your show basically got taken away from you by Peacock, as they decided not to adapt it. But that's fine. It'll go somewhere better, because Peacock sucks. No one likes Peacock anyway. Who uses Peacock? But yeah, so I'm definitely looking forward to this. I hear basically nothing but fantastic things about this entire series. Everyone has me believe that this is Asian Godfather. So we'll see how this goes. I am entirely unsure how much magic is in this. I believe it's relatively low fantasy, and it's sort of a mob story, and warring families, things like that, probably fighting over resources and territory. And I don't think I've read anything quite like that, especially in a fantasy setting. So it'll be interesting to see how magic and Jade plays into this, because I have no clue. I could end up hating it, but I doubt it, because pretty much 100% of the people that I know and trust on YouTube and the interwebs have told me that it's great. So I'm really looking forward to it. And finally, just, starting another fantasy series, because if there's anything I do well here, it's start a bunch of series and finish some of them, and then they go on forever. Like, I started Malazan last year. I read Gardens of the Moon in January of last year, and my whole plan was like, I'm going to read it all, and that didn't happen, did it? I'll get back to it at some point. Why am I talking about Malazan? Anyway, that's what I'm reading in July, and already sort of reading some of them. So what are you reading in July? What does your TBR look like? What do you think of mine? Let me know in the comments down below, and until next video, I'm out. Why did I salute?